Good to see everybody, and I'm so grateful for the effort that you're making to be here today, whether as a contributor or as a participant. So one of the things I'm not going to do is give you a long story about IISE, because we don't have much time, and I want to just sort of briefly say hello and then pass it on so the real play can start. So IISE is basically focused right now on being a hub for international activity in the School of Education. And its focus right now has been, and will be for a while, on the internationalization of higher education. And we couldn't do a better example than what we have here today. So I'm terrifically happy for the launch and hope that will continue. Because one of the things that IISE has always been, and before when it was IDEP, was the importance of continuing relationships from students and professors to students and students that become career long. And in a professional school, that's really important. So thank you for coming. And now I will turn this over to Jorge.
Thank you, Maureen. So good morning, everybody. I'm Jorge Enrique Delgado. I'm program coordinator with the Institute for International Studies and Education, IISE, at the University of Pittsburgh. I am in charge of partnerships and the International Alumni Network and other projects like working with visiting scholars and publications. So we are really, really happy and honored to have our 3 guest participants, speakers today, to be part of our second Brownbag session of the fall semester. And we welcome everybody who accepted our invitation to be part of this Brownbag today, because it's very early for many people, those guys here in Pittsburgh, and it's a little late for our friends in China. So we are very happy about that. So I want to introduce you to our Brownbag that is called Innovative Curriculum Models in East Asia. We have 3 interesting and very accomplished scholars who are presenting today, are sharing their experiences as practitioners and researchers. And so I'm going to start introducing each one of you, but I'm going to give the names. So Huyuan Yi, who is a research fellow at Duke Kunshan University in Kunshan, China. The second person is Weiyan Xiong, who is currently, he has a long name. He's a research assistant professor of the School of Graduate Studies and program director of the master's programs in International Higher Education and Management and Organizational Psychology and Education Management at Lingnan University in Hong Kong. And our guest, Gerardo Blanco, from a director of the Center for International Higher Education and associate professor of higher education at Boston College. So let's start with Huyuan. Huyuan is a former program coordinator with IISE, so he is an alum from the University of Pittsburgh. He graduated in 2018, if I'm not wrong, with an EDD in higher education management, and his dissertation title is very related to what we are going to be talking today: Analyzing Disruptive Innovation in U.S. Liberal Arts Higher Education Institutions. And he was also previously a research analyst of learning science and workforce insights at Southern New Hampshire University. So Huyuan, the forum is yours.
Thank you.
Now, let me start the PowerPoint for you.
Okay, actually, I can share the screen now.
Yes, now I noticed. So it's all yours.
Great. All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. This is such a wonderful homecoming. And interestingly, today is also an anniversary of my presentation at CIHE, Boston College last year. So I guess it's a double homecoming for me. So thank you, Jorge and Geraldo, for this. I want to start my presentation with an analogy. For some reason, I rarely untie my shoelaces. When I put on my shoes, I sneak or force my feet into the shoes. I only do my shoelaces when they look terribly out of place, out of shape. And I wonder, am I the only one here? You don't have to admit it, but the point is, I take my shoelaces for granted. They're just there and always entangled. And sometimes I think we take interdisciplinarity for granted as well. It is just there, often entangled. That's why my institution, Duke Kunshan University, tries to do something different. DKU is a Sino-American joint venture liberal arts and sciences university in Kunshan, China since 2013. Currently, I'm a research fellow for the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs with a keen objective to progressively develop an institutional strategy for measuring interdisciplinary learning at Duke Kunshan University. Now, what makes DKU curriculum unique is that interdisciplinarity is built into every undergrad major from the beginning. If you look at the wheel on the left, we currently have 15 interdisciplinary majors, which is the outer wheel, with various tracks, which is the inner wheel, and 3 academic divisions, arts and humanities, natural sciences, and social sciences, in the place of schools or departments. 7 of the 15 majors are cross-divisional, such as global health and environmental science. This allows observation of narrow interdisciplinarity within academic division and wide interdisciplinarity across academic divisions. On the right, DKU's curriculum is scaffolded for interdisciplinarity and culminates in a 2.5-year student signature work project beginning at the second half of the sophomore year. DKU has a number of unique curricular features to support interdisciplinarity, such as Fridays without classes, 7-week block schedules, 3 vertical common core courses, and no credit mini-term courses. All of these serve to deliver DKU's promise of 7 institutional learning outcomes or animating principles, including rooted globalism, collaborative problem solving, research and practice, lucid communication, independence and creativity, wise leadership, and a purposeful life. Back to shoelaces. I take my shoelaces for granted until they absolutely need redoing. Similarly, we tend to take interdisciplinarity for granted until it needs more deliberate efforts, such as global health issues, global environmental issues, which challenge us to think much more interdisciplinarily, or in other words, to think in terms of wide interdisciplinarity. DKU has a structural advantage for observing wide interdisciplinarity because of its academic divisions and cross-divisional majors. And that helps set up DKU to explore a challenging relationship between interdisciplinarity and learning outcome. Literature exists on both interdisciplinarity, notably Julie Klein, and learning outcome, notably AACU's value rubrics, but little is known about their empirical relationship. So here we ask, does interdisciplinarity matter to learning outcome? If so, in what ways? To help us understand this relationship, we present 2 assumptions. First, interdisciplinarity correlates with better learning outcome. Second, interdisciplinarity correlates with increased correlation of learning outcomes. It is also important to understand that DKU is a very young university, and the latest milestone achieved by the first graduating class is signature work proposal submission. We understand that their interdisciplinary undergrad experience is not yet complete, but also assume that they're sufficiently immersed to be able to reflect learning outcome as a result. Those being said, we phrase the overarching inquiry as what characterizes the relationship between interdisciplinarity and learning outcomes at DKU. Now, DKU's structural advantage for observing wide interdisciplinarity is not sufficient without some calibrations. To be able to measure the relationship between interdisciplinarity and learning outcome, we replace interdisciplinarity with a definition of interdivisionality and utilize student self-perception as an indicator for learning outcome. We define interdivisionality as deliberate student mobility across the 3 academic divisions at DKU. Interdivisionality can be understood as a measurement for wide interdisciplinarity at DKU, and we believe it is also an indicator of unidivisional interdisciplinarity. One caveat for interdivisionality is the level of student deliberateness. Students may stumble across academic divisions without deliberate purposes for interdisciplinarity, and that kind of crossing is not something we want to observe. Instead, we chose to focus on instances of prominent student decision-making through major progression. We also realized that even deliberate crossing may not be for purposes of interdisciplinarity per se. Students may have their own agendas, which nonetheless require crossing academic divisions, and we consider this kind of indeliberate interdisciplinarity also worth observing. Student self-perception is perhaps not the best approach for measuring learning outcome, but we consider it useful for beginning correlation studies as well as for exploring measuring sub-themes of DKU's institutional learning outcomes. Those being said, we use mixed methods for answering 3 research questions. First, is there prominent interdivisional student decision-making by the milestone of signature work proposal submission? Second, are these decisions correlated with student self-perceptions based on the animating principles? And third, do student self-perceptions reflect measurable sub-themes for the animating principles? We deploy a survey as well as interviews and focus groups for DKU students and faculty members with some robust response rates. In total, 58% survey response, 79% completion, and about 60 hours in the interview focus group recordings. One thing to note is that the data are much richer than what I'm presenting here. For example, the faculty data are not covered by this presentation. We also included the class of 2023, considering they're also sufficiently immersed in the DKU model, despite a few milestones behind the class of 2022. Findings to research question 1 suggest that interdivisional student decision-making can be observed at least at 4 levels. At level 1, 30% of the sample students chose a cross-divisional major compared with 70% who chose a unidivisional major. At level 2, 30% chose a cross-divisional signature word topic compared with 70% who chose a unidivisional topic. At level 3, 18% whose signature word topic is broader divisionally than his or her major. And at level 4, 17% signature word topic is narrower divisionally than his or her major. As you can see, percent increase of level 1 to level 3 indicates a tendency towards interdisciplinarity, and the level of deliberateness arguably increases from level 1 to level 3. However, it is unclear as to rationale for level 4. Does that suggest an opt-out of interdisciplinarity? Or does that suggest a more integrated approach to signature work? We don't know yet. Again, a caveat for understanding this percent is that student deliberateness for interdisciplinarity is assumed. It may be due to other factors that students make these decisions. Still, we believe this is a useful framework for measuring wide interdisciplinarity at DKU once more efforts are in place to enhance student deliberateness. Findings to research question 2 suggest early signs of correlation between these student decisions and their self-perceptions based on an animating principle. At level 1, students choosing cross-divisional majors seem to show higher as well as more correlated self-ratings based on animating principles. For example, class of 2022 students choose a cross-divisional major show significantly higher mean self-rating on rooted globalism, as well as significantly increased negative correlation between self-rating sum and standard deviation. At level 2, students choosing a cross-divisional signature word topic are more likely to make decisions attuned to collaborative problem solving, including team up with students or faculty members from other majors or academic divisions. Curiously, level 3 shows a perplexing correlation. It says students whose signature were topics broader divisionally than his or her major showed significantly lower mean self-rating on research and practice. It is unclear why that is the case. Does that mean students met with unexpected challenges later in choosing a more interdisciplinary signature word topic? We don't know yet. One caveat for understanding these correlations is that we use student self-perception, which is not ideal, but is perhaps the best thing available to build upon for future correlation studies. To answer research question 3, we consulted AACU's value rubrics for measuring DKU's institutional learning outcomes or animating principles. AACU's value rubrics offer benchmarks for essential learning outcome at the institutional level. These 16 rubrics were mapped into DKU's 7 animating principles at the founding of its undergrad program in 2018. The findings here suggest measurable themes aligned with the value components of the rubrics. The table here uses rutiglobalism as an example. One thing to note is that measurable themes for one animating principles could be originally mapped for another, such as the theme, I am more creative, which is independence and creativity according to original mapping. This raised thoughts about realignment. It also informs future studies as to whether that is evidence for assumption that interdisciplinarity correlates with increased correlation of learning outcomes. To conclude my presentation, I want to say that it is easy to compare apples with oranges, which is also true in the context of measuring interdisciplinary learning outcomes. The reason I believe DKU is on the right track is because we showed deliberateness and dare to ask tough questions, such as what is liberal arts education or interdisciplinarity truly about? One thing we learned so far is, as a young university, DKU has the luxury of innovating definitions for interdisciplinarity with its unique structures. We also learned that eventually interdisciplinarity is just a means to the end, which is our institutional learning outcomes. Therefore, we'll push hard at our animating principles so that they are accountable and measurable. Then we are comparing apples with apples because now we have a clearer picture about our interdisciplinarity and our learning outcomes. Correlation studies become possible, and in doing so, we pay special attention to the X factor, which is deliberateness, and that often requires incentives. Finally, I have a question for your thoughts, which is what recommendations do you have for measuring interdisciplinary learning outcomes? And I appreciate your comments in a chat or Q&A so that DKU can continue to grow as an innovative university. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hu Yuan Yi, our dear friend. Excellent presentation. Now I'm going to pass the baton to our Weiyan Xiong. Weiyan Xiong is a former program coordinator with IISE also, and he obtained his PhD in 2019 in higher education management at the University of Pittsburgh. You are very involved also with all the activities we do. Last time we were in person with CIS, we were able to share some time with the IISE reception, so it's very good. You wrote your dissertation on a comparative study of ethnic minorities serving higher education institutions in the United States and China. Very, very interesting. And you currently are research assistant professor with Lingnan University in Hong Kong. I know you have a couple of your students here, so we applaud you for inviting everybody, and we know it's late, so after this probably you are going to bed. So we are really excited and happy to have you today, and the forum is yours.
Thank you very much, Jorge. And yeah, it's a great homecoming for me. Actually, today's Brownbag reminded me of our personal session in front of our offices. I think it's still the 5100. I don't know whether it's still 5100 after renovation. And we meet together in the new end. I don't know whether we have the music performance today because there's a tradition for our Brownbag previously. But yeah, I'm very happy to come home to IISE, and yeah, for my students here, yeah, all of them are my very good friends, and I spent my very beautiful 5 years with them at the University of Pittsburgh when I was when I was in the US. Okay, yeah, then I will start my sharing first. So yes. Okay. Actually, today, this is not come from a study, not like Huiyuan's presentation. I just share what we are doing right now regarding curricular models at the Lina University. I don't want to say it's innovative because actually I used many things here at Lina. Actually, I used when I was at Pitt to when I co-taught classes with Huiyuan, with Dr. Jacob. So I just want to highlight some points we are doing right now and to demonstrate, like, I think they are good. They are very good, but also I want to learn from you regarding how to improve the students' learning experiences, especially in the current COVID-19 situation. We are using a lot of online platform and or the hybrid platform. So also, I think my students can share with you if they want about the learning experience currently at Lina University. Okay, so for Lina University, I don't know whether you know it. It's a very small university in Hong Kong. We have 8 public universities in Hong Kong, and the famous ones like the University of Hong Kong, Chinese University of Hong Kong. But Lina is a very small scale one. But this is, we are liberal arts university. We choose to be small. We think a small environment can create the tight atmosphere for students and also for our faculty members. So currently we have only like around 200 full-time academic staff and like 4,500 students, including undergraduate and postgraduate. We are still focusing on undergraduate study, but from like 5 years ago, we decided to improve our research profile. Then this is why the School of Graduate Studies was established, and this is also why I joined Lina to take this position. And also we have some new master's program established, just like the program I lead right now. So later I can demonstrate some information about the class and the curriculum of the program. And we are following the liberal arts tradition. So you can see this is like 8 features of our teaching and learning and our education. So later I will discuss 3 major features of our curriculum design and also the teaching and learning but all of them are under this liberal arts tradition for Lina University. The 3 features I want to highlight, they are like outcome-based teaching and learning, experiential learning, and evidence teaching and learning. I will go through them one by one. So the outcome-based learning, teaching and learning, this is what the Hong Kong government promoted actually like in 2007, 2008. They promote this outcome-based learning and teaching in all 8 public universities. So since then, we started to create the framework to how to like transfer our teaching from like a person previously we call it normalized based like assessment for teaching to the outcome based. In specific, we have established a series of like intended learning outcomes, including for the whole program, like the master program. We have the program intended learning outcomes. We call it PILOs. And for each course, we have CILOs, the course intended learning outcomes. Then we also, for the graduates, they need to meet, we call it graduate attributes. Then we combine all these intended learning outcomes together for each course to the whole program and to the whole graduate attributes. Then we make this, it's called alignment of constructive framework to combine our teaching and learning activities and to the learning outcomes to the final like degree they receive. So this is guiding our teaching and learning right now at Lina University. One example is that our evaluation or assessment for each course, we are using the rubrics. I think we are actually in the US, we are also doing this right now, right? So I feel very familiar with that when I joined the Lina, when I say, okay, at Pitt, I also experienced that, but here we're also using that. So this is But for Hong Kong, it's a trend for the curricular, especially for the assessment for our students' learning outcomes. The next one is called experiential learning. Simply to say that our liberal arts education, like tradition, we don't want just to limit our students within the classroom. We want to also provide not like informal education or outside the classroom using the environment and context on campus, outside campus, like we provide residential education. So traditionally, Lina University, we have a featured program. It's called the Integrated Learning Program, and they covered 6 areas to provide the students like ability training outside the classroom. But these activities are like credit bearing, but they are only for undergraduate students, as I mentioned, because we are traditionally focusing on undergraduate students. And so to cover the graduate students, we established a similar one. It's called a Learning Enhancement Activity Plan. We call it LEAP. This is a very new one. We created more graduate students related activities. For example, we focus more on the research side to help our students to cultivate research abilities to understand, for example, what's the difference between qualitative and quantitative. So very basic workshop for our postgraduate students. Because one situation here is that because our we call the taught postgraduate program is very short, just 1 year. It's different from our postgraduate program in the US or in other countries. So we have to cover as much as possible during this short time. And the learning enhancement activity plan is one of them. And in specific, we also provide the student research enhancement scheme, which is we encourage our faculty members every semester. We invite them to open 1 or 2 research projects to our students. They can join as a research assistant to gain some like research experience, and also they will get some payment as an incentive to help them to accumulate research and also learn about the topic and about the research methods in the real research projects. So these 2 are the examples of what we are doing right now as the experiential learning at the university level or at the school level, at the School of Graduate Studies level where I am working right now. But at the program level, I will take the program I am leading right now. It's called Master of Arts in International Higher Education and Management. So you can see this is the course list for this program. The highlighted one by the red box, they are experiential learning courses, which means that in this course, we will actually organize some international conferences, and our students are required to attend and also encouraged to present the research if they have and they want. Then you can see the experiential courses actually take a big part of our whole curriculum. Some examples is that, for example, we have like this course, you can see that internationalization and quality management in higher education. Actually, it's an annual international conference every year. We organize this to invite international scholars to join, and also our students are required to join as well to get the first-hand experience in international conference and also research environment. And also like another bigger scale one, like a conference for higher education research, Hong Kong. And I remember Hui Yuan used to like to apply for this conference as well, but due to some reason cannot make to Hong Kong. But this is the example we are doing right now. And for others, we have actually, for my daily work, in addition to teaching program administration, another big work is to organize international conferences. But good thing is that now because of the COVID-19, we can move a lot of conferences to online platform. And it's very flexible for our students to join. But the best thing is that first, they are too frequent. I think they have a little tired of so many conferences. Also for the scholars, like usually we attend like at most 3 to 4 on-site conferences per year, but now almost every month we can attend one. So, but this is what we provide to our students as the experiential learning platform. Here are other examples. So we also collaborating with the scholars and also other universities. I and Wang Xi, we are actually talking about that we can co-organize like a symposium or the one-day event with IISE and also the School of Graduate Study. And I just saw, Geraldo, your message. Of course, after this we can discuss about collaboration, especially about comparative education. Your center is is very famous, like just like IISE, I want to say. So of course we need to collaborate in the future for our master's class. So this is the example of the experiential learning courses we are doing right now. The last part is about evidence-informed teaching and learning. We are actually, I learned this actually from IISE, from the course of Dr. Jacob, because he likes to use the project, the real research project in the classroom. And I found it's very useful. At first, we can use this project in the learning process. Then I use this format as well when I joined Lingnan. And then I found, okay, the university now is promoting this way. We call it the evidence-informed teaching and learning. But at the beginning, it's not systematic, yes. We only have several faculty members doing this with the support of the Teaching and Learning Center. But now, since this year, the early of this year, the university decided to like commit, have an initiative to commit to the United Nations SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. What we have done right now is that the university just connects our research area to the SDGs. And we put into the elements of SDGs into our teaching. This will help our students to understand about SDG as well as like we can contribute to this area. But this is we are still at a very early stage in this evidence-informed teaching, especially connecting with the SDGs. I'm currently conducting a research on like how to integrate holistically the SDG into the teaching and learning instead of just the School of like Environmental Studies or just the SDG related curriculum are talking about that, but actually how to improve like it's called sustainability competency of students as well as our faculty members. So I'm very happy to see Dr. Jin Liu is also here today, and he is the expert in this area, and we can discuss later maybe more about this area. Okay, so as a summary, we are, as I mentioned, maybe this is not innovative. This is just what we are doing right now, and in my opinion, I think they are very helpful to help our students to gain like a good learning experience, because the learning experience is the core mission of Lingnan University, and this is also we want to provide to our students, and this is also what we are recognized. For example, like among 8 public universities of Hong Kong, Lingnan University students like learning experience ranked number 1 or number 2 regarding the satisfaction. And also we are ranked like number 3, I think, worldwide for the quality education, for the Times Higher Education Impact Ranking. So I think this is a very good recognition for our efforts. But lastly, I want to say, no matter what like teaching or learning models or curriculum models you are or we are using right now, I think the most important is about the human being side. Like as an instructor, as a teacher, you have to pay attention to your students. This is I learned a lot at Lingnan is that because one feature of our liberal arts education is that the closed staff student relationship. We care about our students not only in the classroom, not only about the performance, but also a lot of other like skill developments and the personal development. So we have a lot of activity and also the communication after classes. So to end my presentation, I want to share like a story. It's about the close staff and students relationship. Is that When I was a doctoral student at the IISE at Pitt, and I was the co-instructor with Dr. Jacob, I need to grade students' assignments because this is traditionally a TA's work, right, and or co-instructor's work. Then at that time, I think, okay, when I become an instructor, I will ask my TA to do that. But after I joined the Lingnan, they told me, no, you cannot ask a TA to grade students' assignments because you have to know them well. You have to make this close connection. You need to understand their performance in academic based on grading the assignment. So, so now I'm still grading my students' work only after the TA to do some like multiple choices or the grading. But for the open-ended questions, I have to grade them. But as I mentioned, it's a wonderful journey to know those students, to communicate with those students. And it's not only I teach them, actually I learn from them as well. I believe this may be the most important curriculum model, is like the human being touch between staff member and the students. Okay, I will end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wei-Yang Xiong, our dear alum from Pitt also. So thank you very much. And we are very happy that we are keeping the connection and you're doing very interesting things at Lingnan. Okay, our third participant, last but not least, is my dear friend Gerardo Blanco Ramirez. I always say that, even though I already noticed that you are shortening your last name. I guess it's very difficult for people to pronounce it, so it's easier. That's what I advised when I came here. It was like, okay, you need to use short ones because otherwise people won't be able to say your name. So anyway, but so we are very happy to have you here. Gerardo got his EDD in 2013 in Education Policy and Leadership, Higher Education from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. You received in 2014 Best Dissertation Award from the Higher Education SIG. I think at that time I was the co-chair of the SIG, and after that I passed you the baton as the co-chair in 2017. So we are very, very happy, and we've shared so many experiences throughout the years, mostly through CIIS, and you've been very active in the field of international higher education in general with CIIS and ASH. And currently you are an associate professor of higher education and academic director of the Center for International Higher Education at Boston College. We are really honored and happy to have you today with us, sharing some of your experiences in the topic of innovative curricular models. So the forum is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning and good evening to all of you. I don't think it's afternoon for anybody today in this call, so I'm just going to stick to morning and evening. It's really such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you all very much for welcoming me into your academic community. It's really so important. I think, as Wei-Yan said, that the most important aspect is always the human aspect, and for that I'm so grateful that that we have these opportunities to work together, to collaborate, and to learn from each other. So thank you very much to the Institute for International Studies in Education for this very, very kind invitation. And it's really nice to join your worldwide community of scholars. My contribution is going to be much more modest and therefore shorter, because my colleagues, both Huiyan and Wei-Yan, are really in the forefront of innovation. And for that reason, maybe one of the small contributions that we've had in CIHE at Boston College has been actually having Huiyan as a visiting scholar with us last year in the middle of the pandemic, when and that was a great opportunity to learn more about these innovative models, and that connected with some past and ongoing work in CIHE about liberal arts education from a global perspective, and what a valuable contribution that was, and we're still very much benefiting from that relationship and from that expertise that was shared with us. I want to focus on three main aspects in my brief remarks. First of all, I think one of the elephants in the room is the fact, right, that our colleagues in East Asia have responded in much more vigorous and decisive ways to the pandemic. And as a result of that, COVID-19 still looms large in terms of the possibility for collaboration, especially if it involves face-to-face collaboration and mobility. So that's one of the challenges that we are still contending with. Secondly, I want to provide just a couple of examples of the work that we are doing in the Center for International Higher Education at Boston College of collaboration. Like Wei-An, I don't know if I can call it innovative yet. I suppose the proof is in the pudding, so we will know later on if these turned out to be innovative or not. They are innovative, I think, for us at Boston College, because every time you collaborate with colleagues in a different national context, you are invited, right, to reflect about what you do and why you do it in that particular way. And that is always such a gift and such a benefit. And then thirdly, adding a bit more examples, right, to the geographic diversity of this panel, as I will be focusing primarily on work that is ongoing in the Philippines and in Japan. So I think that's kind of a very brief overview. So first of all, in terms of COVID-19, I was very happy to see Adriana here in the call, because one of the pieces of research that we are working on is with our colleagues in the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto and with the International Association of Universities. And this project, in conjunction with us, CIHE at Boston College, is looking, right, at the effects of COVID-19 on internationalization. And this is a 3-year project. Our specific contribution will start kicking into high gear in a few months' time. We'll be looking at a set of institutional case studies. So I'm here taking notes and really looking forward to the discussion, because I think certainly there are already 2 very strong possibilities for some of these case studies to trace, particularly internationalization from the perspective of internationalization of the curriculum and internationalization at home. This really connects with what I was saying earlier about how mobility being paused has been certainly a challenge, but it can also be seen as a gift, because alternative approaches to internationalization, specifically internationalization of the curriculum through COIL, through virtual exchange, are really a great opportunity. And therefore, my quick message to Wei-An during his presentation, I think we are ripe for maybe coiling some of our courses, since we also have a master's in international higher education. And certainly, we could think of many different ways to work together. So I think thinking broadly about internationalizing the curriculum will be very important. In many ways, also the example that Wei-An shared with us highlights what I wanted to mention, which is how in many ways our colleagues are ahead of us because you are creating something new. When for adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic, universities in the West have had to retrofit what we had. And that is often much more challenging, much more difficult to do. The other two examples that I wanted to share is speaking of innovation and speaking of starting something anew. We are working closely with our colleagues at the Ateneo de Manila in the Philippines, and they have a brand new School of Education, the Gonco Way Brothers School of Education and Learning Design. Just not quite 12 hours ago, I was meeting for the same reasons of time difference with their founding dean. And we're very excited about some of the work that we are doing jointly between this new School of Education and Ateneo de Manila. Ateneo de Manila is not by any means a new university. It is a very well-established Jesuit university in the region, but they didn't have until recently a School of Education. And we are very privileged at Boston College to be working with them. And again, the innovation is in some ways easier for them than it is for us. Just to give you a very quick example, one of the ways we are trying to innovate in the curriculum is to offer joint courses. Well, for them, and to do that through online collaboration, right? So for them, they can develop these new structures according to this idea, following this sort of design thinking process. For us, we need to contend with the existing bureaucracy of Boston College, right? So in a way, I think this is such an appropriate panel, right? Because truly the curricular innovation is much more possible and much more available in areas that like East Asia, right? Where the change is already happening. So the adaptation, institutions can be much more nimble. Certainly new institutions can do that. And then the second example that I thought was also worth mentioning is not a new institution, also a very well-established Jesuit institution, Sophia University. But what is interesting in our collaboration with Sophia University in Japan is that both Sophia University and Boston College are founding members of something called SACRU, which is the Strategic Alliance of Catholic Research Universities. So this is so far a very small group of only 8 universities around the world. Sophia University is the only institution in Asia that is participating. And the idea that this new alliance is responding to, by new, I mean in the last 3 years, is that on the one hand, there are consortia of very research-intensive universities. There are also consortia of Catholic universities, but there aren't very many, or there weren't any consortia focused on both, right? Of some of the most research-intensive Catholic institutions, because often Catholic research universities are pooled, right? Faculty members in these institutions, we are pulled in 2 different directions, and we're trying to find together in what ways can we harmonize this Catholic identity with the research orientation. And to us, the Catholic identity means this liberal arts orientation, among other things, but this is one of the characteristics in the curriculum. So I think I would stop there because I think these are some valuable examples. The part that I would emphasize, of course, here is the significance of collaboration and just how open and willing we are in the Center for International Higher Education to partner at the course, at the program, and at the institutional level. And just again, wanted to highlight my gratitude to all of you for the invitation to join this panel.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And you've been accumulating and gathering so much interesting experience and collaborations with scholars and institutions around the world, which is incredible. So you are a model to follow. So thank you very much. So I guess we have a few minutes for conversations. Let me see if we have any questions on the chat. So please, everybody, if you have any comment, any question, please type it on the chat, and we'll be able to share it with you. I want to start with a question. So one of the things that I see right now is a call for transformation of higher education the way we know it. One of the big calls for transformation has been changing what we know as traditional degrees in different levels. And we've been also affected and influenced in many, many ways by the current pandemic, but also by the ongoing technological and scientific revolution that we are in the middle of. So we don't know where we are heading. We know that we are in the middle of a big change that is happening very fast. So how do you see all those trends influencing or affecting, where Gerardo mentioned a little bit about that in general, and Wei Yang and Huyen presented some examples from what they are doing. So how do you see that moving, not only in the area, but at the global scale?
Okay, may I speak first for a little sharing? Yes. So
please
because
ahead,
this question I just discussed with the colleagues from Taiwan and other countries. I think last Friday we have a conference on the post-pandemic higher education development, and one topic is about the new trends. Because recently I just read a book about like 5 new realities for higher education development. Because of the COVID-19, because of it's called maybe the 4th industrial revolution. They said because the competition from outside the university, from the technology giants, will become very, the competition will become very severe, because it's called the non-degree program, or they call it just in case education, or the certificate-oriented education will become very popular. For example, like we have like actually since the gig economy, so people are focusing on those very short, efficient programs. I believe this will bring like a big challenge to the traditional like degree education for universities, especially based on that book. They mentioned that this competition or this trend will increase, and but in my opinion, I think they say we have to be very careful about that, because this brings more like neoliberal like trends into the higher education, even more. Yeah. So my thinking is that again we will lose our human side. Everyone will focus only on the, like we want to find a job, so we need skills. We need a certificate. Who can give me the recognized certificate, and I will go to the program. But what about the time in the 1 year or 4 year program, which can bring to you like your softer skills and a lot of like the human being side like experiences. So in this way, I think it will be a very popular trend for those short certificate program, especially I think for our traditional university, we will do that as well. But we will face very severe competition outside the university. And but I heard one very good suggestion from the speaker that day, and they mentioned that actually we can combine these short ones and the traditional degree program to take the both advantages. But I think we are still working on this way. Okay, this is my brief sharing.
I just want to add a very short comment, and this is actually a quote from a research paper saying we are all currently being influenced by a gravitational pull of disciplinary specialization. And I feel this is ever so true, especially when we are facing many external challenges like environmental challenges, global health challenges. So I think from that point of view, I think what DKU is unique is that we're not only doing interdisciplinarity, we are deliberately doing it. because interdisciplinarity actually pre-exists, as we know, before universities, right? Because we know there is this notion about pre-disciplinarity where, you know, disciplinary knowledge are inherently connected even before universities are founded. So to answer Maureen's question about is interdisciplinary a focus of liberal arts colleges, I think my answer is yes, and it is also not only a focus for liberal arts college, but also should be a focus for research universities, for traditional universities as well, as we're facing this gravitational pull of disciplinary specialization.
And just very briefly, if I may add, right, that there are ways of utilizing some of these tools, right, to think about some of these pressures. How do we think about digital badges and certificates? But then incorporating those practices into the much more robust and rigorous curricular offerings that we have, right? So in a way, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I think as universities, we are so much better, right? Like I think often what we lack is that confidence. We are so much better at teaching and learning than any of these organizations can be, right? And I think we need to be unapologetic about asserting that advantage. I think that's what many of these technology companies are very good at. They make very big assertions. And I think we need not to be shy. I think we need to be assertive about what we have to offer for the formation of students.
So I have very quick question because we don't have a lot of time. So actually my question to three of our value speaker today. So your presentation is very interesting, especially you mentioned about the evaluation of the outcomes of the curriculum with the approach of interdisciplinary. So I'm very curious on the evaluation, whether your school or university pay attention to employability in terms of national and international. Especially for DK University, you have a new program, especially for graduate and undergraduate. So I'm very interesting when Dr. Yer mentioned about level 1, level 2, or level 3, and you mentioned about like problem solving outcome. So I think that employability, like evaluation or measurement to see whether your student after graduate, what percentage and how they adapt themselves and work efficiently in national and international context. So I'm curious about that. Whether
Thank you, Dal, for your question. I think a brief answer to that is we're only beginning to consider that as something that we need to consider, because we're still a very young university. So a lot of the previous effort or focus on how to make the interdisciplinary curriculum come to life. And then actually later we realized the students are having their own agendas, having their own career goals, and maybe some of their plans are not synergistic with our curriculum. So right now we are kind of struggling with, you know, balancing between our institutional vision for interdisciplinarity, but at the same time putting our feet on the ground to realize students' career goals. And that's a very, I would say, a delicate tug of war between, you know, institutional resources. And the one thing I want to mention is that our curriculum do not force students to think or to work on interdisciplinarity. They can still pursue a very traditional, for example, science and technology type of learning pathways. For example, material science students can still do their science projects. That's totally fine, but we're just want to make sure that students don't get sucked into this disciplinary type of specialization narrative, but at the same time allow them the max flexibility for them to succeed in careers.
Thank you. So how about Lian?
Okay, so I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think Gerardo, you have another commitment at 9.
I'm afraid so, but it has been just such an honor to join you all. Thank you.
So thank you really very much for joining us, and hopefully we can find opportunities to collaborate, continue collaborating in the future in interesting projects for the betterment of higher education, international higher education. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and please visit in Boston.
Yes. So Wei-Yan, if you want to respond, to comment.
Oh, yeah. So actually, may I respond to Jean's question on chat?
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. So Jean's question is about how to integrate the sustainability issues themes to interdisciplinary teaching and learning. Okay, so I want to say at Lingnan, we are doing right now at a very early stage, in my opinion. So we want to, we try to use the competency-based approach. Like we want to set up it's called sustainability competency, and integrate this framework into our outcome-based teaching and learning. Like have a list of these skills, abilities, attitudes related to sustainability. But the problem now is that based on the literature, we found it's actually very confusing between sustainability skills or competency and interdisciplinary. It's more like sometimes the literature has the same list, but I think next step is that we have to differentiate, have a clear, maybe more focused list for the sustainability competency, which we can integrate that into our outcome-based learning. So this is also the topic. We work together for the special issue. I just submitted that I think Hong Kong has a very good environment for the integration of sustainability into teaching and learning. Is that we have very high institutional ability, autonomy, and second, we are using outcome-based teaching. The third one is that we are using evidence-informed teaching. As I just shared that we put SDG into our faculty members' research. This is the first step for it's like a push to our faculty member to understand, okay, my research can be related to sustainability or SDGs. This is the first step. Maybe next step is that we have to develop the mature like a professional development program for our faculty members. And another way is that we need to establish a list of sustainability competencies and also combine students training and faculty members profession development training to finalize, to achieve this goal, to realize the real integration. This is what we are doing right now. This is also the framework I proposed in the special issue article. I hope it will pass the review. Okay, this is my response to your question.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wei-Yan and Huyen for the answers. So we had we are supposed to go until 9 a.m. We had to schedule a short brown bag this time because of the time commitments and also the time difference and also the commitments we have. There are other couple questions, but we invited everybody to share their affiliations and email and names, so we can probably continue the conversation later, so we can share it with everybody. So if you want to continue talking to our guest speakers and maybe thinking of other opportunities to continue the conversation and do projects together. So Maureen, do you want to say something to close? You are muted.
I always do that. I'm so sorry. I think that it's wonderful that so many people showed up. And I think the topic is very important because in part, one is looking at the future of the liberal arts. And as a graduate of one of those schools, I have deep affection for it. one of the things that I see as on the horizon that where you two are right now is this whole notion of interdisciplinary thinking as a way of being able to offset the problems of overdisciplinary thought. So I would encourage you to continue and would like to continue to work with you on this, because there's only so much you can measure. And the really wicked problems are ones of identity, of experience, and those things that make it very difficult to share. So my particular interest is in wicked problems and framing. And I think that framing analysis is a good way of being able to look at the really complex issues that you are raising. So thank you. Appreciate it.
So thank you everybody for joining us today. We are very happy really for having everybody today this late or this early. And please follow us and under IISE.pitt.edu. And if you have any ideas of more collaboration with alumni or colleagues around the world of topics that we can include or projects, please reach us out and we'll be happy to work together. So thank you very much again and have a wonderful day and night.